Hey everyone, my name is Ali, and I am co-founder and chief product officer at Infracost. Um, I actually started looking at cloud costs in 2010 as part of my PhD research, and back then there was about 10,000 price points between AWS and the other vendors, and today there's more than 10 million price points. So as you are very familiar, the complexity in this space has just mushroomed over the last 10, 15 years, and I think we need better tools. And that's the crusade I've been on since I did my PhD to see how do we improve this. Infracost is actually my second startup in the space. The first one was acquired by Flexera, which is still around. And um, if you've ever seen the movie Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, and you get very excited to say, let's shift left all those things, I'm here to tell you, don't do that, because you're going to get one of these three reactions from your engineers. Either they're going to roll their eyes and ignore you, or they're going to be very indifferent and ignore you. Worse, you're going to upset them by blocking them at the wrong time as they're about to push out an emergency change, and they're going to ignore you. So, if FinOps is everyone's job, then how the heck are we meant to shift left in a way that maximizes that engineering action without getting one of those three emoji reactions from the developers? Here is what the journey usually looks like that I've seen over and over again. From 0% prevention and no shift left, all the way to something like 95% prevention rate. So let's pause for a second and let me just define what do I mean by prevention rate. Prevention rate is defined by the number of new issues that were prevented being added to the code base divided by the total number of issues. So, for example, if I'm writing some Terraform code or infrastructure code that provisions a S3 bucket, and that S3 bucket doesn't have a lifecycle policy, and at the same time I'm doing a database that's using extended support, I'm introducing two new issues to the code base. If I fix one of those things before I deploy, I have a 50% prevention rate. So it's very simple to calculate that if you're observing at the right places. Usually, this journey I've seen over and over from our customers takes a couple of quarters. The first quarter is always just gathering data. What are the new issues being added? Which teams are adding those? And which ones are important and which ones are not? We then go into this inform phase where you can basically make suggestions in the path of the engineers and say, hey, there's an issue right here. You're not telling them you have to fix it. You just inform them that there is an issue. And what's been surprising is you actually get about 20% prevention rate by just telling them at the right time. Usually after a quarter, when everybody's kind of built up that awareness, you go into this soft enforcement phase where you say, hey, it would be great if you could actually fix that issue. That S3 bucket does really need a lifecycle policy. And we often see just that nudge of, I do require you to fix it, and putting a red cross in the developer's workflow in GitHub or GitLab, that gets about 50% prevention rate. Just that one signal change, because you're really playing with the developer's motivations here. And then finally, this is the last hardest part. If you do want to get to something like 95% prevention, you do actually have to block the pull request. But it's really important that you do it in a way where it doesn't disrupt the engineering workflow too much. And I'll show you what I mean by that. This journey, this is actually a screenshot from one of our customers. They're a Fortune 100, and this thing took about 4 quarters to get to about 95% prevention rate. So how do you then drive adoption without the noise? Developers hate noise, so you have to be very careful of that. If I go to a developer and say, here's 20 things to fix, they'll be like, I'm good, I'm okay. What works much better is if you pick something like 3 priorities every quarter, and you go to them and say, hey, these are the 3 most important things I care about. We get a lot more action that way. Put it another way, if you go to your development teams and say, everything is important, what they will hear is nothing is important. So don't do that. Instead, pick 2 or 3 priorities every quarter and just focus on those. And then next quarter, focus on the next 3. And then finally, it's really important that you measure that prevention rate and you show the development teams that, hey, what they're doing is on the right path. And they're at 20%, and you're going to help them get to like 95% in the next several quarters. That ruthless prioritization is what happened in the previous company I just mentioned. There was about 27 policies that they could have applied and enabled in the pull request comments for the developers to action, but they just chose one policy, and that was tagging. And that's how they just drove action on that one thing because it was underpinning cost allocation and showback, and it was very critical for the company at that time. So they just focused on that, and that ruthless prioritization is what got them to 95% prevention rates. When it comes to engineering, maximizing that engineering action, 3 things I've seen are all very important. If I go to a development team and say, hey, we need to save $20 million this year, they were like, great, what do you want me to do about that? So what works better is if you speak their language. Talk about best practices and the well-architected framework and inefficiency, because they all want to be better engineers. And that's the motivation you want to tap into versus you're going to help me save money, right? Like, no, I'm good. You also want to fit into the development workflow. So I've got some examples where I'll show you what I mean by that. And then developers hate meetings. I don't know if you've noticed already, but so try and avoid creating lots of meetings, lots of Jira tickets and spreadsheets. They're more like put data in their path, give them the right nudges at the right time. I'll show you some examples, and that results in better action. So what do I mean by fit into the engineering workflow? Well, there's 3 stages in the development workflow that are kind of key to this FinOps crowd here. The first one is what I call pre-commit. This is on the developer's machine, on their laptops, we're literally talking about, where they are about to write the code, or increasingly nowadays, they're telling Claude to write the code for them. And they're using tools like Copilot or Claude or VS Code. If you can prevent an issue in that pre-commit phase, that gets the best reaction from the developers. Why? Because it's the fastest feedback loop, and it means the least amount of time they have to spend to fix an issue. The next best place is in CI/CD, so pre-deployment in tools like GitHub or GitLab or Azure repos, where the team is coming together to push the code and review the code together. If you can provide that safety net in CI/CD and prevent an issue right there, that's also pretty good. Why? Because it's still before deployment. Post-deploy, that means when you're looking at the AWS bill or the Azure bill and you detect an issue and you go back to the development teams and say, hey, I've seen an issue in the bill or the focus format and I need you to go back and have a look at this. It's not really shift left. It's after the fact. But I think it's better than nothing for sure. It's not that the developers don't care or don't want to action this. It's just it is a lot more effort. Take a database as an example. If that database is using an old version and is charging extended support fees, if I catch that before deployment in these 2 stages, it's a one-line change I'm talking about. It's the database version I bump up to fix. If it's post-deploy, that database is now running production workloads. I need to snapshot that thing. I need to plan some downtime. There's going to be risk. I need to notify this thing. It is a lot more work to fix that issue. So that's why the best 2 stages are often pre-commit and pre-deploy. Focus on those 2. Now, in the last 6 months or so, we've all seen instead of developers using a traditional editor, they're all using tools like Claude, and they're telling it, hey, just give me an S3 bucket. I don't care. Just give me the S3 bucket code. So it's become really important for you to be able to feed those best practices into things like Claude or Copilot and make sure that the coding agent is actually writing the code correctly from day one. Otherwise, after the fact, you got to go back and create a Jira ticket, and they got to go back and fix it. In CI/CD, it looks like something like this. Why is that important? Because I think that's the right level of granularity. Like, they're introducing a change. You just notify them about their change. For example, the environment tag on this AWS instance, you've specified prod. The actual valid value is production. And this is at the right granularity for them to take action on, and it's the right place and it's at the right time, right? I'm making that change right now. So if you tell me, I'll fix it. But if you go after the fact, I got to go back, send another one of these pull requests, wait for somebody to review my code, deploy my change. It is a lot more work. So you get to them at the right place, it's perfect. And then finally, it's really important to provide that two-way communication between the teams. So you give them an escape hatch. If they can't fix it, they tell you, I'm going to dismiss the issue and move on. So that's it. The journey to 95% prevention, I think these 3 things are key. Don't enable everything at once. Just focus on a couple of things. And then finally, make sure you fit into that development workflow, ideally in the pre-commit and the pre-deploy phases. I'll be at the booth at the back. If you have any questions, drop by. Thanks.
Hey everyone, producer Andrew here. Thanks for watching. Check out the rest of our channel for more FinOps content. Like, subscribe, and leave questions and comments for our speakers. We appreciate your support.